Fractured foundations. In the idyllic town of Millbrook, where tree-lined streets and picturesque homes created an image of tranquility, the Watson household stood as an unassuming facade of happiness. Ryan and Camilla Watson, a couple seemingly blessed with everything, were at the center of this story, a tale that would unravel the delicate threads of their marriage and reveal the tragic consequences of unfulfilled dreams. Ryan, a 35-year-old insurance salesman, had always been overshadowed by the successes of others. He had a wiry frame and thinning hair that betrayed his youthful spirit, and an air of defeat clung to him like a heavy cloak. He had dreams once, ambitions that seemed to flicker out like candle flames in a drafty room. 7 years into his marriage, he found himself adrift in a sea of regret, the passion that once ignited his love for Camilla reduced to a smoldering ember. Camilla, at 32, was the epitome of grace and warmth. As a beloved third-grade teacher at Millbrook Elementary, she brought joy and encouragement to her students. Her smile could light up a room, and her nurturing nature made her a cherished figure in the community. But behind her radiant exterior lay a heart burdened by loneliness and disappointment. Their marriage, once filled with promise and laughter, had withered under the weight of unspoken frustrations and unmet expectations. Ryan's lack of ambition gnawed at Camilla, who had always envisioned a life filled with adventure and fulfillment. The spark that had ignited their romance slowly fizzled out, leaving them in a cycle of quiet desperation. Ryan's work at the insurance firm was uninspiring. He spent long hours sitting behind a desk, selling policies to clients who treated him with indifference. With every passing day, he watched as younger colleagues surpassed him, earning promotions and accolades. A sense of inadequacy settled in his bones, deepening the chasm between him and Camilla. As the months rolled into years, the arguments that once punctuated their lives became more frequent and intense. Camilla begged Ryan to pursue further education, to take steps toward a career that would make him feel fulfilled. But her pleas fell on deaf ears. Instead of rising to the occasion, Ryan withdrew, immersing himself in mindless distractions, video games, late-night television, and the solace of a cold beer. The couple existed in the same home yet led separate lives, communicating through terse remarks and the occasional sticky note left on the kitchen counter. Camilla buried herself in her work, volunteering for every committee at school, desperately trying to find purpose in her professional life. Meanwhile, Ryan sought refuge in online gaming, retreating further into a world that offered him escapism but no solutions. On a particularly stormy September evening, Ryan's frustrations reached a boiling point. Alone in the dim light of their living room, he brooded over his life choices, consumed by regret. With the rain pounding against the windows, he felt like a prisoner in his own home. That's when he decided to step out for a drink, an impulsive escape from the suffocating silence of his marriage. At Al's bar, he found solace in the bottom of a glass, each sip of beer dulling the ache in his heart. It was here, in the haze of alcohol, that he met Lyle Dorson. Lyle was a rugged man in his late 30s, a scruffy beard framing his face and tattoos snaking down his arms, a man whose reputation in Millbrook was one of trouble and disregard for the law. As the two men struck up a conversation, Ryan found himself sharing his marital woes with Lyle, pouring out his feelings of inadequacy and frustration. Lyle listened intently, his eyes glinting with a mix of interest and something darker. He spun tales of escapades and thrill-seeking behavior that left Ryan entranced, caught in the thrill of Lyle's dangerous charm. As the night wore on, Lyle proposed an outrageous idea, a plan that would change the course of Ryan's life forever. It was reckless, dangerous, and rooted in desperation. Ryan, fueled by alcohol and the longing for validation, agreed to a scheme that would see him rescue Camilla from a fabricated danger, an act that would rekindle the passion in their marriage. In that moment, the thrill of being the hero overshadowed any sense of morality. The idea was absurd, yet Ryan felt a flicker of hope. He would become the savior he so desperately wanted to be, the man Camilla would fall back in love with. They would reclaim the passion they once shared, and everything would change. In the days that followed, Ryan threw himself into preparations, navigating the delicate web of deceit he was about to weave. He withdrew money from his meager savings, scouted locations for the supposed kidnapping, and met with Lyle multiple times to refine their elaborate plan. But as excitement bubbled within him, so did a gnawing sense of unease. What if Candela discovered the truth? What if the police got involved before he could orchestrate the rescue? He brushed these thoughts aside, convinced that the end would justify the means. Ryan meticulously tracked Candela's daily routines, noting her schedule and the times she would be most vulnerable. He even placed a hidden GPS tracker in her car, ostensibly to facilitate the rescue, but really to ensure Lyle wouldn't deviate from their plan. It was a reckless move, but the allure of heroism blinded him to the potential consequences. Meanwhile, Candela remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around her. As she navigated the challenges of her job, she found solace in her students and the satisfaction of teaching. But at home, her heart ached for the warmth and love that seemed to have vanished from their relationship. As the date of the planned kidnapping approached, Ryan's excitement morphed into dread. He lay awake at night, plagued by thoughts of what could go wrong. On the morning of the event, the anxiety weighed heavily on his chest, but he couldn't back down now. He had made a choice, and he had to see it through. Candela left for work that morning, unaware that her husband was about to orchestrate a dangerous deception. As Ryan watched her drive away, a sense of finality washed over him. He was poised on the precipice of a life-altering decision, and he had no idea just how far it would take him from the life he thought he wanted. As the hours passed, Ryan's anxiety grew. He received a text from Lyle, confirming that the plan was set in motion. It was time to execute the scheme that would irrevocably change the course of their lives. With a heavy heart, he prepared to play his part, unaware that the tragedy lurking in the shadows was about to unveil itself. Little did he know, the thrill of being a hero would quickly spiral into a nightmare, leading to heartbreak, chaos, and irreversible consequences. Ryan was about to discover that the line between hero and villain is often blurred, and sometimes the quest for validation can lead to devastating tragedy. The illusion of control. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm glow over Millbrook as Ryan prepared for the execution of his reckless plan. He felt a mix of excitement and dread coursing through him, as if he were a tightrope walker balancing precariously between two worlds, the mundane life he wanted to escape and the dangerous fantasy he was about to embrace. After a morning filled with second-guessing, he received a call from Lyle, his voice crackling with urgency. It's time. Camilla should be on her way home from school. Ryan's heart raced. Are you sure about this? What if something goes wrong? Lyle's laughter echoed through the phone. Relax, man. I've got it all planned out. Just stick to the plan, and you'll be the hero you've always wanted to be. With those words ringing in his ears, Ryan steeled himself and took a deep breath. He had longed for this moment, the chance to reclaim his identity and to prove to Camilla that he was worth loving. He stepped into the living room, where he had set the scene. A ransom note hastily written, a dramatic backdrop for the hero's arrival. As Camilla pulled into the driveway, Ryan felt a surge of adrenaline. This was it, the moment he had envisioned for weeks. He quickly placed the note on the kitchen counter and moved to the back door, ready to spring into action. However, as he heard the sound of her car door closing, doubt crept back into his mind. He wondered if the fantasy he had concocted was truly worth the risk. What if she were to discover the truth? What if she was terrified, confused, and hurt by his betrayal? Shaking off the thoughts, he focused on the plan. Lyle had assured him it would all go smoothly. He would keep Camilla occupied, and when Ryan arrived for the rescue, everything would fall perfectly into place. The door swung open, and Camilla entered, her arms laden with bags from the grocery store. She smiled at Ryan, but the warmth in her gaze felt different, tinged with a hint of fatigue. a reminder of their growing distance. "Hey, how was your day?" Ryan asked, forcing a smile. "Busy, as usual," she replied, her tone light, but her expression weary. "I graded papers all afternoon and then had a meeting after school. Just the usual grind." Ryan nodded, the ache of their disconnected conversation gnawing at him. He longed to reach out, to bridge the gap that had formed between them, but the plan loomed over him like a dark cloud. As Camila headed into the kitchen to put away the groceries, Ryan took a moment to collect himself. He could do this. As Camila busied herself in the kitchen, Ryan felt his pulse quicken. He glanced at the clock, calculating the minutes before Lyle would make his move. He should have been focusing on how to make their evening more enjoyable, yet his mind was consumed by the impending chaos. The tension in his chest tightened like a vice as he wrestled with his conscience, reminding him that this plan could lead to irrevocable consequences. "Ryan, are you okay?" Camila called from the kitchen, her voice cutting through his troubled thoughts. "Yeah, I'm fine," he replied, forcing an upbeat tone into his response. "Just tired, I guess. It's been a long week." A brief silence followed, and Ryan could feel her scrutiny from the kitchen. He hated how they had become strangers, sharing the same space yet living in different worlds. He remembered the laughter they once shared, the adventures they used to embark on together, and the intimacy that had faded over the years. He took a deep breath, trying to summon the courage he needed for what was about to unfold. As the minutes ticked away, he could feel the tension in the air thickening. This was not merely a rescue mission. It was a betrayal dressed in the guise of heroism. Finally, the moment arrived. The sound of a vehicle approaching snapped him back to reality. Ryan's heart raced as he glanced out the window, catching a glimpse of Lyle's familiar beat-up van pulling into the driveway. Panic set in. What if Lyle had second thoughts? What if this was all spiraling out of control? "Everything okay?" Camila's voice broke through again, tinged with curiosity. "Yeah, just, I think I left something in the car. I'll be right back," Ryan called out, forcing himself to move toward the back door. As he opened the door and stepped outside, he felt the cool evening air wash over him, grounding him momentarily. Lyle was waiting by the van, his face obscured by a dark ski mask, a sinister grin breaking through as he saw Ryan approach. "Remember, stick to the plan," Lyle said, his voice low and intense. "No turning back now." Ryan nodded, swallowing hard. "I just want to make sure she's okay. This has to go perfectly." "Relax," Lyle replied, a hint of amusement in his voice. "You're about to be the hero. Just follow my lead." With a deep breath, Ryan steeled himself. Lyle moved into action, disappearing around the side of the house as Ryan returned inside, where Camila was just putting away the last of the groceries. "Hey, is everything all right?" she asked, noticing the change in his demeanor. "Yeah, everything's fine," he replied, forcing a smile. "Just a little distracted." At that moment, the sound of a sharp knock echoed through the house. Camila looked up, confusion crossing her features. Who could that be? Before Ryan could respond, Lyle burst through the back door, his mask still on and his demeanor brimming with menace. "Stay quiet," he growled, grabbing Camila roughly by the arm and yanking her toward him. Ryan's heart dropped. The plan had taken a dark turn, and the shock in Camila's eyes sent a wave of guilt crashing over him. "Lyle, what are you doing? This isn't what we talked about," he protested, panic rising in his throat. "Shut up," Lyle barked, pulling Camila closer and holding her against him as she struggled to break free. "You wanted a hero, didn't you? This is your chance." Camila's eyes widened in fear as she registered the situation unfolding before her. "Ryan, what's happening? Please, let me go," she pleaded, her voice trembling. The sight of her terror twisted Ryan's gut. This wasn't just a game. It was a nightmare. The weight of his decision crashed down on him, and he realized the gravity of what he had done. The quest for validation had turned into a living horror story, and he was complicit in it. "Lyle, this isn't what I wanted," Ryan shouted, stepping forward, desperation driving him to intervene. "Let her go. I thought we were just going to pretend." "Don't be stupid, Ryan," Lyle snarled, tightening his grip on Camila. "This is the only way it'll work. You wanted to be the hero. Show me you're serious. If you want her back, you'll play your part." Ryan felt his mind racing. He had crossed a line, and there was no turning back. The illusion of control he thought he had was slipping through his fingers. He had orchestrated this dangerous charade, and now the consequences were bearing down on him like an avalanche. "Camila, I'm so sorry," he cried, his voice breaking. "I didn't want it to be like this. I thought I could fix things." "Fix things?" Lyle laughed harshly, shaking his head. "You're about to ruin your life, buddy. She's my ticket to some easy cash. You'll pay the ransom and play the hero while I take a nice vacation." Panic surged within Ryan, and for a moment he stood frozen. Camila's fear-stricken face pierced through him, and he realized the depths of his folly. The desire to be seen as a hero had blinded him to the reality of the situation. "Lyle, please," Ryan pleaded, his voice barely above a whisper. "Let her go. We can talk about this. I'll pay you whatever you want. Just don't hurt her." But Lyle's eyes burned with greed, and the man he had met in the bar was not the person he thought he knew. The darkness within Lyle was more profound than Ryan had ever imagined. Suddenly, Lyle's grip on Camila loosened slightly as he turned his attention to Ryan, momentarily distracted. Seizing the opportunity, Camila fought against Lyle, breaking free from his grasp. "Run!" she screamed, and in that split second, she bolted toward the door. Ryan's heart raced. "Camila, no," he shouted, desperate to protect her. But the chaos of the moment enveloped him, and Lyle quickly recovered, lunging toward her. In a frantic scuffle, Ryan grabbed Lyle's arm, trying to pull him back. But Lyle, fueled by adrenaline, shoved Ryan aside with surprising strength. "Get back here," Lyle barked, charging after Camila, who was now sprinting out the back door and into the yard. Ryan felt the horror settle deep in his chest. Everything he had orchestrated had spiraled out of control, and he was left powerless to stop it. As Camila reached the edge of the property, Lyle was hot on her heels. The sight of his wife, terrified and running for her life, was enough to ignite a primal urge within Ryan. "No," he yelled, the word bursting from his lips as he sprinted after them. "Stay out of this, Ryan," Lyle shouted, his voice filled with rage. "This is about to get real ugly." The chase unfolded in a blur of chaos. Camila ran toward the street, and Ryan's mind raced with thoughts of how to protect her, how to undo the mess he had created. He reached for the GPS tracker in his pocket, a small device that now felt like a burden rather than a tool. "Camila, get to the neighbors," he urged, his voice hoarse as he closed the distance between them. But Lyle had other plans. He lunged forward, catching up to Camila just as she was about to reach safety. "You're not going anywhere," he growled, grabbing her arm with a vice-like grip. Ryan's heart dropped as he witnessed the scene unfold before him. The visceral fear in Camila's eyes was a haunting reminder of the consequences of his actions. With a surge of adrenaline, Ryan pushed himself forward. "Let her go," he shouted, feeling the weight of determination propel him. In a moment of desperation, he tackled Lyle to the ground, the two men rolling on the grass as they fought for control. Camila watched in horror, torn between wanting to help Ryan and her instinct to escape. "Get off me, you idiot," Lyle spat, shoving Ryan away with all his strength. The two men struggled, but Ryan felt the energy waning. Lyle was relentless, fueled by anger and the thrill of chaos. As the scuffle continued, Camila spotted her chance. She sprinted toward the street, shouting for help. "Somebody help me, please." Her voice rang through the air, echoing with desperation. In that moment, Ryan knew he had to end this nightmare. He had to prove he was not the coward Lyle had painted him to be. With a final surge of strength, Ryan tackled Lyle once more, this time managing to pin him to the ground. The shock of their sudden struggle drew attention from nearby neighbors, and Ryan could hear the distant sound of sirens approaching. "Stay down," Ryan shouted, grappling to maintain control over Lyle, who thrashed beneath him. But as he pinned Lyle down, he felt a sudden shift in the air. The weight of his decisions settled heavily on his shoulders. He had sought validation through a plan that had spiraled into chaos, and now he was faced with the consequences of his choices. Finally, the police arrived, their sirens blaring as they pulled up to the house. Officers jumped out, rushing toward the scene. Consequences unfold. The sharp sound of sirens cut through the tension, echoing like a lifeline as officers poured onto the scene. Ryan's heart raced with a mix of relief and dread. He wrestled Lyle into submission, pinning him to the grass as he awaited the officers' arrival. The adrenaline coursed through him, amplifying the gravity of the moment. He could see Camila in the distance, her eyes wide with fear and uncertainty. "Get your hands off him," shouted one of the officers, a tall man with a commanding presence. Ryan looked up, catching sight of the badge glimmering on the officer's chest. "Officer, this man tried to kidnap my wife," Ryan exclaimed, his voice shaky but urgent. "You have to help her." As the officers approached, Lyle wriggled beneath Ryan, trying to break free. "You're making a big mistake, man," he spat, his voice filled with venom. "You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into." Ryan's grip tightened as he fought to keep Lyle subdued. "Just hold him down," he called to the officers. "He's dangerous." The police quickly intervened, pulling Ryan away from Lyle and restraining him with handcuffs. The moment felt surreal. Ryan had imagined a heroic rescue, not this chaotic whirlwind of violence and confusion. "Ryan, are you okay?" Candela called out, her voice trembling as she approached. The sight of her, shaken and vulnerable, struck a chord deep within him. "I'm fine. Just stay back," he urged, turning to face the officers who were now assessing the scene. "Ma'am, are you all right?" one of the officers asked Camila, who nodded but looked visibly shaken. I'm fine," she managed to say, though her voice wavered. I was taken by this man." Lyle glared at Ryan, his expression a mix of anger and disbelief. "You're going to regret this. You think you can play hero, but this is far from over." As the officers began to process the situation, Ryan felt the weight of their scrutiny. He was no longer the hero in this story. He was a man who had orchestrated a dangerous deception. The realization sank in, heavy and suffocating. "Sir, can you explain what just happened?" one of the officers asked Ryan, his tone measured but firm. Ryan's mind raced as he struggled to articulate the chaos. "I had thought I could make things better. I wanted to prove to my wife that I could be a hero," he stammered, the words spilling out in a rush. "But I was wrong. I didn't think it would go this far." "Did you have any part in planning this kidnapping?" the officer pressed, eyeing Ryan with skepticism. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," Ryan exclaimed, desperation rising in his voice. "I just wanted to show her I could be someone worth caring about. I thought this would make her notice me again." As the officers exchanged glances, Ryan felt a crushing wave of shame wash over him. The idea of being a hero had blinded him to the reality of the situation. The thrill of the plan had quickly transformed into a nightmare, and now he was at the mercy of the consequences. Meanwhile, Candela stood nearby, her face pale and her heart racing. The fear and confusion swirled within her as she processed what had just happened. The man she loved, the man she had hoped to grow old with, had entangled them in a web of lies and danger. "Ryan," she finally said, her voice steady despite the turmoil. "How could you do this to me? You put my life at risk." "I was trying to fix things. I thought you needed me to be someone else," Ryan responded, the desperation in his eyes pleading for her understanding. I never meant for it to get out of control. You could have talked to me. You could have said something." Candela shot back, tears threatening to spill from her eyes. "Instead, you went to a criminal and plotted this ridiculous scheme." At that moment, Lyle's laughter echoed in the air, dark and mocking. "You both are pathetic. You think this is over. You have no idea how deep this rabbit hole goes." The officers moved to secure Lyle, reading him his rights as they prepared to take him into custody. Ryan felt a pang of fear for Camila as he watched the scene unfold. She was still shaken, and he could see the worry in her eyes. As Lyle was loaded into the police car, he turned to Ryan one last time. "You'll regret this, Watson. You think you can walk away clean. You have no idea what you're up against." The officers escorted Ryan and Camila to a nearby squad car where they could discuss the incident in a more secure environment. The air was thick with tension, and Ryan could feel the weight of the choices he had made bearing down on him. Once inside the car, Ryan turned to Camila, desperate for her forgiveness. "I'm so sorry, Camila. I was foolish. I thought this could bring us back together, make everything right again." Camila shook her head, her expression a mix of hurt and disbelief. "You didn't just make a mistake, Ryan. You put my life in danger. You made a choice to involve someone like Lyle in our lives. This isn't something I can just forgive." The gravity of her words settled in his chest like lead. He had dreamed of rekindling their love, but had instead plunged them into a nightmare. "I'll do whatever it takes to fix this," Ryan said, his voice trembling. "I'll make it right. I promise." "Fix it? How? You've already destroyed everything." Camila snapped, her voice breaking. "I don't even know who you are anymore." As the officers began to take statements, Ryan felt a sense of despair enveloping him. The walls he had built around his self-worth had crumbled, leaving him exposed and vulnerable. He had longed for validation and recognition, but in his quest to reclaim his identity, he had sacrificed the very thing he wanted to save. In the days that followed, the fallout from the incident spread through Millbrook like wildfire. News outlets reported on the shocking kidnapping plot, turning Ryan and Camila into unwitting participants in a true crime saga. The headlines painted a grim picture: local man's desperate scheme to save marriage turns violent, captured the attention of the town, and the whispers followed them wherever they went. As the investigation unfolded, Ryan was faced with the consequences of his choices. While Lyle faced charges of kidnapping and assault, Ryan was left grappling with the reality of his actions. The police advised him to stay away from Camila for her safety, leading to a painful separation that tore at his heart. In the solitude of his apartment, Ryan spent sleepless nights replaying the events in his mind, tormented by the knowledge that he had brought danger into Camila's life. Each passing day felt like a slow march toward an uncertain future, filled with regret and sorrow. Meanwhile, Candela struggled to process the trauma of the incident. The fear and betrayal lingered like a dark cloud over her heart. She had always been the pillar of strength, but now she felt vulnerable and exposed. The safety she once found in her marriage had been shattered, leaving her questioning everything she thought she knew about Ryan. As Ryan attempted to reach out, to explain himself and seek forgiveness, Camila remained distant, her heart guarded. The intimacy they once shared had been replaced by a chasm of hurt and mistrust. "Ryan, I can't keep doing this," she finally told him during one of their phone calls. "I need time to think, to heal. You've put me through so much." Each word felt like a dagger, and Ryan knew he had crossed a line that may never be undone. "I understand. I'll give you all the time you need," he replied, his voice filled with remorse. But deep down, he feared that time would only serve to widen the divide between them. The realization that he may have lost Camila forever weighed heavily on his heart. He had wanted to be the hero, but he had instead become the villain in his own story. As the weeks turned into months, Ryan was forced to confront the reality of his situation. The life he had imagined, one filled with love, respect, and shared dreams, felt like a distant memory. The echoes of his failures haunted him, and he was left grappling with the consequences of his actions. Ultimately, he knew he needed to make a choice, to confront the man he had become and to fight for the chance to rebuild his life. But he also understood that he couldn't do it alone. The path to redemption would require him to confront his past, to face the very shadows he had tried to escape. With a heavy heart and a determination to make amends, Ryan began the difficult journey of self-discovery, seeking help and support to reclaim his identity. It would be a long and challenging road, but he was ready to face whatever lay ahead. Little did he know that the journey of healing would lead him to unexpected places and teach him profound lessons about love, forgiveness, and the true meaning of heroism. Part 4. The Road to Redemption. The days turned into weeks, and the reality of Ryan's situation continued to sink in. The fallout from the kidnapping incident loomed large over his life, casting shadows on every aspect of his existence. He had become a pariah in his own community, with whispers trailing him wherever he went. He spent his days in the quiet isolation. The road to redemption. The days turned into weeks, and the reality of Ryan's situation continued to sink in. The fallout from the kidnapping incident loomed large over his life, casting shadows on every aspect of his existence. He had become a pariah in his own community, with whispers trailing him wherever he went. The small-town news had turned the Watsons into a spectacle, and Ryan could hardly step outside without being reminded of the tragic farce his life had become. In the aftermath of the kidnapping, Camilla had retreated into herself, taking a leave of absence from teaching to process the trauma. The vibrant warmth that once characterized her demeanor had faded into a fragile shell. She spent her days in a haze, haunted by the memory of that night, the fear in her heart, the adrenaline of escape, and the betrayal she felt from the man she had married. Ryan, on the other hand, found himself battling the demons of regret and shame. His once quiet life of mediocrity had morphed into a nightmare of his own making. He knew that seeking redemption meant confronting the mistakes he had made, acknowledging the hurt he had caused Camilla, and rebuilding the trust that had been irrevocably shattered. With the weight of his choices bearing down on him, Ryan began attending therapy sessions, hoping to untangle the mess in his mind and heart. He found himself sitting across from Dr. Martinez, a compassionate woman who specialized in trauma recovery. Each session opened a new door to understanding. The roots of his insecurities, the fears that had driven him to such desperate lengths, and the painful realization that he had put Camilla's life at risk for a misguided attempt to validate his own worth. Ryan, it's essential to recognize the underlying issues that led you to make such a dangerous choice, Dr. Martinez said gently, her gaze steady and reassuring. What do you believe motivated you to go through with the kidnapping plan? Ryan shifted uncomfortably in his seat, the memory of that fateful night flooding back. I thought it would make me feel like a hero, he admitted, his voice cracking. I wanted Camilla to see me differently, to see me as someone who could protect her and be someone worth loving. But instead, I just hurt her. Dr. Martinez nodded, encouraging him to explore deeper. That desire for validation, for recognition in your marriage, is understandable. But have you considered that your actions may have stemmed from feeling inadequate, feeling like you were never enough? Ryan's chest tightened as her words resonated within him. I've always felt invisible, I guess. In my career, in my marriage, it was like I was always stuck in the background. And I thought this would change everything. The sessions became a lifeline for Ryan. He learned to confront the painful truths about himself, his marriage, and the disastrous path he had taken. As he unpacked his feelings of inadequacy, he began to understand how they had distorted his view of love and validation. But while he worked on himself, the absence of Camilla loomed large in his heart. He missed her laughter, her warmth, the way she used to light up a room. The distance between them felt insurmountable, and he yearned for a chance to make amends. One evening, after a particularly difficult therapy session, Ryan sat alone in his apartment, staring at the walls that felt increasingly confining. He pulled out his phone, hesitating as he contemplated reaching out to Camila. Would she even want to hear from him? What could he say that would make any difference? With a deep breath, he composed a message, pouring his heart into the text. Camila, I know you're taking time for yourself, and I respect that. I just want you to know that I'm working on myself, trying to become a better man. I understand if you need space, but I hope we can talk when you're ready. I miss you. After hitting send, Ryan felt a mix of anxiety and hope. He had taken a small step, but it was a step nonetheless. The next few days passed slowly as he awaited a response, each moment stretching into eternity. Finally, a few days later, Ryan received a text from Camila. I'm willing to meet. Let's talk. The words felt like a fragile thread, weaving hope back into the fabric of his life. They agreed to meet at a small coffee shop in town, one they had frequented during happier times. As Ryan drove there, his heart raced with anticipation and dread. Would Camila be able to forgive him? Would they be able to find their way back to one another? As he entered the cafe, the familiar aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, stirring memories of laughter and love. He spotted Camila sitting at a corner table, her expression thoughtful as she gazed out the window. She looked beautiful, even in her sorrow. The lines of worry etched on her face tugged at Ryan's heartstrings. Hey, he said softly as he approached, his voice barely above a whisper. Hi. Camila replied, her tone measured. She gestured for him to sit down, and Ryan took a seat across from her, feeling the weight of the unspoken words hanging between them. The initial silence was deafening, each moment filled with the echo of their shared history. Ryan opened his mouth to speak, but the words caught in his throat. I've missed you, he finally managed, his voice trembling. I've missed us. Camila met his gaze, her eyes filled with a mix of pain and longing. I've missed you too, but things can't just go back to the way they were. I need you to understand the gravity of what you did. I know, Ryan said, his heart aching. I'm so sorry for everything. I let my insecurities push me into a situation that could have cost you your life. I've been working on myself, on understanding why I made those choices. I never wanted to hurt you. Camila's expression softened, but the hurt still lingered. It's hard for me to process everything. You put my life in danger, Ryan. I don't know how to reconcile that with the man I fell in love with. I understand, he replied, his voice thick with emotion. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want to show you that I'm serious about making things right. I've been going to therapy, trying to become a better man. I want to be someone you can trust again. As they continued to talk, the barriers that had built up between them began to shift, if only slightly. Camila shared her feelings, her fears, and the lingering effects of the trauma. Ryan listened intently, nodding as she spoke, feeling the mixture of guilt and determination to earn back her trust. Part of me wants to believe that you can change, Camila admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. But another part of me is scared. I don't want to go through that kind of pain again. I promise I'll do everything in my power to prove that I can be the man you deserve, Ryan said earnestly. I want to rebuild our relationship, brick by brick. It won't be easy, but I'm committed to this. As they talked, Ryan noticed a flicker of hope in Camila's eyes. It was a small spark, but it was enough to ignite a flame of possibility. They both understood that the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but for the first time in a long while, Ryan felt a glimmer of optimism. Over the next few weeks, they met regularly, sharing their thoughts, fears, and hopes. Ryan continued his therapy, working through his insecurities and taking active steps to become a better partner. He sought out workshops on communication, read books on emotional intelligence, and learned how to express his feelings more openly. With each meeting, Ryan could sense the walls around Camila's heart slowly beginning to crumble. They shared laughter, reminisced about happier times, and explored the possibility of rebuilding their relationship. But there were still hurdles to overcome. Camila was cautious, and the scars of the past loomed large in her mind. She struggled to let go of the fear that had taken root within her, The haunting memory of the day she had been kidnapped and the man she had trusted had put her life at risk. "Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever feel truly safe again," she confessed one evening as they sat together on a park bench, the sun setting in the distance. Ryan took her hand, feeling the warmth of her skin against his. "I want you to feel safe, Camilla. I want to be someone you can rely on. I'll do whatever it takes to make that happen." With time, their bond began to deepen, and Camilla found herself drawn to Ryan's earnest desire for change. They worked together, attending couples therapy to help rebuild their relationship. Slowly but surely, they started to communicate more openly, learning to express their feelings without fear of judgment. Ryan learned to listen without interrupting, to validate Camilla's emotions, and to understand her perspective. It was a gradual process, but with each session, they peeled back the layers of hurt and disappointment that had clouded their marriage. Then, one fateful evening, as they strolled through the park, Camilla turned to Ryan with a contemplative expression. "I've been thinking about what it would look like to move forward. It won't be easy, but I want to try. I want to believe in us again." Ryan's heart soared. "Are you serious?" he asked, barely able to contain his excitement. "Yes," she replied, her eyes glistening with determination. "But it's going to take time, and a fragile rebuilding." Ryan felt as though he had been granted a second chance, a rare opportunity to rebuild not just their relationship but also the very foundation of trust that had been shattered. Camilla's words rang in his ears, filling him with a cautious optimism he hadn't dared to hope for just weeks before. But deep down, he understood that rebuilding would not be a straight path. It would be fraught with challenges, and the journey would require patience, understanding, and unwavering commitment from both of them. The couple decided to start with small, manageable steps. Their first major move was to embark on a weekend trip together, a way to reconnect without the distractions of their everyday lives. Ryan planned the trip meticulously, choosing a quaint cabin in the woods, a place they had visited early in their relationship, filled with happy memories of hikes and stargazing. As they drove out of Millbrook, Ryan could feel the tension in the air begin to dissipate. Camilla sat beside him, her hands resting in her lap, a cautious smile creeping across her face as they traveled along the winding roads. The further they drove, the more the weight of their past seemed to lift, replaced by a glimmer of hope for the future. Arriving at the cabin, they were greeted by the crisp mountain air and the scent of pine trees. Ryan opened the door, and they stepped into the cozy space that felt both familiar and foreign. The cabin was a time capsule of their early days, filled with the warmth of memories yet also heavy with the shadows of their recent struggles. "Do you remember the last time we were here?" Ryan asked, trying to break the ice. Camilla looked around, her eyes softening as she recalled the past. "Yeah, we went hiking, then made s'mores by the fire. We stayed up talking about our dreams," she said, a hint of nostalgia in her voice. Ryan felt a pang of longing. "I want to make new memories, ones we can cherish without the weight of what's happened between us." They spent the first evening unpacking and settling in, taking the time to reminisce about happier times. As they prepared dinner together, the playful banter and laughter began to flow, and Ryan felt the familiar warmth of companionship returning. He marveled at how Camilla's laughter could still fill the room, the sound soothing his frazzled nerves. After dinner, they sat outside on the porch, the night sky sprawling above them like a velvet blanket dotted with stars. The tranquility of the moment wrapped around them, and for a brief instant, the burdens of the past faded into the background. "I've missed this," Camilla admitted, her gaze fixed on the stars. "I've missed being able to talk to you without feeling scared or anxious." Ryan took a deep breath, the air fresh and invigorating. "I've missed it too. I know it will take time to rebuild what we lost, but I'm committed to doing the work. I want to be the partner you deserve." As the night deepened, they shared stories and dreams, discussing everything from the future they envisioned to the small, everyday moments that brought them joy. Camilla's laughter echoed in the cool night air, and Ryan felt a sense of hope swell within him. Perhaps they could find their way back to each other, piece by piece. The following day, they ventured into the nearby woods, embarking on a hike along familiar trails. With each step, Ryan was reminded of the joy they had once found in nature together, the way they had explored, laughed, and connected in the beauty of the world around them. As they climbed a small hill, they reached a viewpoint overlooking a breathtaking valley. The colors of autumn painting the landscape in vibrant hues of orange and gold. Ryan turned to Camila, who stood beside him, her eyes wide with wonder. "Look at this," he said, gesturing toward the view. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" "Yes," she replied softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "It reminds me of what we used to have. It feels like we're finally finding our way back." In that moment, Ryan felt a surge of determination. "We can reclaim what we lost, Camila. We can build something new together. I want to create a life filled with love, laughter, and respect." As they stood together, absorbing the beauty around them, Camila took a deep breath. "I want that too, Ryan. But it's going to take time, and we'll have to face the scars of the past." Ryan nodded, understanding the magnitude of the journey ahead. "I'm willing to put in the work. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I want to explore my own ambitions, to be someone you can be proud of." With renewed hope, they made their way back down the trail, the bond between them feeling a little stronger with each step. Over the next few days, they continued to explore their surroundings, sharing laughter and stories as they found joy in the simple things. The warmth of the sun on their skin, the crunch of leaves beneath their feet, and the soft rustle of the wind in the trees. But as the weekend drew to a close, reality began to creep back in. The weight of their circumstances still hung heavy, and the fears they had both tried to push aside began to surface once more. On the drive home, Ryan felt a knot of anxiety tighten in his stomach. "Camila, can we talk about the future? I mean, really talk." Camila glanced over, her expression contemplative. "Yes, I think we need to. We can't just pretend everything is perfect because we had a good weekend." "I know," Ryan replied, his heart pounding. "I want to discuss our plans, where we see ourselves going from here. I'm determined to change." "I need to be honest with you, Ryan," Camila interrupted gently. "I want to believe that we can work through this, but I also need to take things slow. The trust we had is broken, and it's not something that can be rebuilt overnight." "I understand," Ryan said, feeling the weight of her words settle heavily in the car. "I'll do whatever it takes to earn that trust back. I'm committed to showing you that I can be the partner you deserve." Over the next few weeks, they continued their journey toward healing. They attended therapy sessions together, working on communication and understanding each other's needs. The process was not without its struggles. There were moments of tension, miscommunication, and raw emotions as they navigated the complexities of their relationship. One evening, as they sat across from each other at the dining table, the air grew thick with silence. Camila's brow furrowed, and Ryan could sense that something was weighing heavily on her mind. "Ryan," she began hesitantly, "I've been thinking a lot about us. I want to forgive you, but it's hard for me to let go of the fear that comes with what happened." "I get that," he replied, leaning forward. "I can't erase the past, but I can promise that I will never let it happen again. I'm learning every day what it means to be vulnerable and honest." Camila nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I don't want to carry this burden anymore. I want to find a way to move forward, but I need to know that I can trust you." Ryan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. "I'm here for you, Camila. I want to earn that trust, and I'm willing to be patient. Let's take it one step at a time." As they continued to communicate openly, they found new ways to connect, rebuilding their intimacy slowly but surely. They experimented with date nights, exploring their city and trying new activities together. Each moment spent in each other's company felt like a small victory, a reminder that love could flourish even in the aftermath of tragedy. But as they grew closer, The specter of Lyle still lingered in the background. Although he had been arrested and was awaiting trial, the impact of his actions echoed through their lives. The media frenzy surrounding the kidnapping continued to surface, with articles highlighting Ryan's desperate actions. Each new headline felt like a wound reopening, serving as a reminder of the chaos that had ensued. One afternoon, as Ryan scrolled through his phone, he stumbled across a news article that caught his eye. The headline read, "Millbrook man faces charges for role in kidnapping scheme." A photograph of him accompanied the article, his expression frozen in time. A snapshot of the man he had been before the reckoning. "Camilla," he called, his voice filled with unease. "You need to see this." She approached, glancing at the screen. "What is it?" Ryan's hands trembled as he read the article aloud, detailing the charges against Lyle and how Ryan's involvement had shocked the community. The weight of the public scrutiny crashed down on them again, and Camilla's face fell as she absorbed the implications. "This is never going to go away, is it?" she whispered, her voice heavy with sadness. "I don't know," Ryan admitted, feeling the familiar pit of anxiety grow in his stomach. "But I want to focus on us, on healing. We can't let this define us." "Easier said than done," she replied, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Every time I see your name in the news, it reminds me of everything we went through." "I know, and I'm so sorry," Ryan said, taking her hands in his. "But we're moving forward. We have to believe in each other and in our ability to create a better future." As they faced the trials of public healing and hope, the days passed, and though the storm surrounding them hadn't fully abated, Ryan and Camilla worked diligently to carve out a path toward healing. The harsh glare of media attention slowly began to fade, but the wounds from their past remained raw and tender. With each passing day, they learned to navigate the complexities of their relationship, seeking to understand each other more deeply than ever before. The autumn leaves began to fall, blanketing Millbrook in hues of gold and crimson, and with it, a sense of change filled the air. Ryan found solace in nature's transformation, reflecting on his own journey, a metamorphosis from a man engulfed in insecurity to one striving to rebuild his life, brick by brick. One chilly evening, as they sat together on the porch of their cabin, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Camilla turned to Ryan, her expression thoughtful. "You know, it's almost been a year since everything happened," she said quietly. "I've been thinking about how far we've come since that night." Ryan nodded, his heart swelling with gratitude for the opportunity to be with her again. "It feels like a lifetime ago," he replied, a small smile tugging at his lips. "But I'm glad we're still here together." Their journey hadn't been without its hurdles. They had faced their fears, shared their vulnerabilities, and confronted the shadows of their past. Therapy sessions had become a staple in their lives, allowing them to discuss emotions they had previously buried deep within. They explored the intricacies of trust, commitment, and forgiveness, learning to support one another in their darkest moments. "Sometimes I still feel scared," Camilla admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Scared that I'll wake up one day and realize that the man I fell in love with isn't really there anymore, that you'll revert to the person who thought he needed to prove himself through such reckless actions." Ryan's heart ached at her honesty. He understood that the journey of healing was not linear. It ebbed and flowed, often pulling them back into the depths of fear and uncertainty. "I can't promise that I won't have moments of weakness," he said, his tone earnest. "But I can promise to keep fighting for us. I'm not the man I was a year ago. I've learned so much about myself, and I want to be the partner you deserve." Camilla looked into his eyes, searching for sincerity, and for the first time in a long while, she saw a flicker of the man she had fallen in love with. "I believe you," she said softly. "I just need to keep reminding myself that we're rebuilding something new, not trying to return to what was." With the autumn breeze rustling the leaves around them, they both embraced the bittersweet nature of change. It was not the fairy tale they had once envisioned, but perhaps it could be something more real, more profound. As the weeks progressed, they began to participate in community events, trying to forge connections with others while rebuilding their lives together. Ryan volunteered at a local youth program, sharing his experiences with teens who faced their own struggles. Through mentoring, he found a sense of purpose, a way to channel his past mistakes into something meaningful. Camila, on the other hand, returned to teaching, finding joy in shaping young minds and impacting her students' lives. The warmth of her classroom brought a renewed sense of fulfillment, and she thrived in the nurturing environment. Each smile from her students felt like a step toward healing, a reminder of the love she had to give. One day, while volunteering, Ryan met a young boy named Leo who had a fierce curiosity but struggled with feelings of inadequacy. Ryan recognized the same insecurities he had felt throughout his life. Over time, he developed a bond with Leo, mentoring him and helping him navigate his challenges. As Ryan shared his own story of redemption, he realized that it was not just about reclaiming his past. It was about forging a new future, one where he could inspire others to rise above their circumstances. "Mr. Watson, do you really think people can change?" Leo asked one afternoon as they sat on the steps of the community center. Ryan paused, considering the question carefully. "I believe that change is possible, Leo. It takes a lot of work, and it's not easy, but if someone truly wants to change, they can." Leo nodded, absorbing the wisdom Ryan imparted. "I want to be better too. Sometimes I feel like I'll never be good enough." Ryan's heart swelled with compassion. "You are enough, just as you are. Remember, everyone has their struggles, and it's okay to ask for help. You're not alone in this." In the months that followed, Ryan's relationship with Camila continued to deepen. They took weekend trips to explore new places, sought out adventures that reignited their sense of wonder, and dedicated time to nurturing their connection. One weekend, they decided to hike to a nearby waterfall, a place that had been a sanctuary during their early years together. As they reached the summit, the breathtaking view of the cascading water filled them with awe. Ryan took Camila's hand, the rush of water below symbolizing the tumultuous journey they had navigated together. "Look how far we've come," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "From where we started to where we are now. It's incredible." Camila smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. "It really is. I feel like we're building something new together, something stronger." As they made their way back down the trail, hand in hand, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that they were finally emerging from the darkness that had once engulfed them. Each moment shared felt like a testament to their resilience, a reminder that love could flourish even in the aftermath of pain. But the specter of Lyle remained in the background, his trial looming on the horizon. The uncertainty of the situation weighed heavily on both Ryan and Camila. They had worked so hard to move forward, but the threat of the past was never far from their minds. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, Ryan could see the tension etched across Camila's face. "I've been thinking about the trial," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm scared, Ryan. I don't want to revisit that night." "I know," Ryan said gently, taking her hand. "It's a reminder of everything we've fought through. But we're stronger now, and we'll face whatever comes together. You don't have to go through this alone." Camila took a deep breath, her heart racing at the thought of confronting Lyle again. What if he tries to manipulate the situation? What if he says things that make me doubt everything we've built? Ryan squeezed her hand tighter, his determination shining through. "He can't take away what we've created. We've worked too hard for that. I'll be by your side every step of the way." The trial date arrived, and with it came a surge of emotions. Camila felt the weight of dread as they walked into the courtroom, the air thick with tension. Ryan remained a steady presence beside her, offering his support as they took their seats. As the proceedings began, Lyle's demeanor shifted from the desperate man who had kidnapped Camila to someone projecting bravado, seeking to undermine their progress. The courtroom became a battleground where old wounds were laid bare, and the memories of that fateful night were resurrected. "Mr. Watson, The prosecutor began, addressing Ryan. Can you describe the events leading up to the kidnapping of your wife? Ryan's heart raced as he recounted the details, the truth spilling from his lips in a wave of vulnerability. He described his motivations, his insecurities, and the ultimate betrayal he had orchestrated. Each word felt like a weight lifting, a moment of catharsis in the face of fear. As Camilla took the stand, Ryan felt a mix of admiration and anxiety. She was about to share her truth, her fears, her pain, and the trauma that had rippled through their lives. But as she spoke, something shifted. Camilla's voice was steady, her resolve palpable. She painted a picture of resilience, of a woman determined to reclaim her narrative. In the face of Lyle's manipulations, Camilla stood strong. I won't allow you to control my life anymore, she declared, her voice unwavering. I fought to reclaim my happiness, and I refuse to be a victim of your choices. The courtroom fell silent, the gravity of her words resonating throughout the room. Ryan felt pride swell within him as he watched her reclaim her power, her courage radiating from her like a beacon of hope. After several emotional days in court, the jury deliberated, and the verdict was finally delivered. Guilty on all charges. Relief washed over Ryan and Camilla as they embraced, their hearts lifting as they faced the future together. Walking out of the courthouse hand in hand, Ryan knew that the path they had taken was fraught with challenges, but it had also brought them closer together. They had emerged from the darkness, ready to embrace the possibilities that lay ahead. Thank you for standing by me, Camilla said softly, leaning against him as they walked toward their car. I'll always stand by you, Ryan replied, a sense of determination in his voice. We've come too far to turn back now. As they drove home, the setting sun painted the sky in hues of pink and orange, a reminder of the beauty that could be found even in the aftermath of pain. Ryan and Camilla were ready to embark on the next chapter of their lives, one that was marked by resilience, understanding, and a renewed commitment to one another. Together,